For decades, the name James Brown didn't just dominate music, it defined an era. The godfather of soul. A man whose voice shaped generations, whose energy turned every stage into something unforgettable. From I Got You, I Feel Good, to Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. He didn't just perform music, but behind the spotlight, there was another story. 9 children, multiple mothers, a life that moved too fast to ever slow down. And after his death, that legacy didn't bring the family together. It pulled them apart into one of the longest, most complicated estate battles in music history. Because sometimes, the bigger the legend, the harder it is for the family to hold on to what's left behind. So what really happened to the family behind the legend? To understand that, you have to look beyond the music. Because the life of James Brown was never just about rhythm and performance, it was about movement, constant movement. Born in Barnwell, South Carolina in 1933, James Brown rose from humble beginnings to become one of the most influential artists in history. From gospel roots, to the famous Flames, to timeless records like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I Got You, I Feel Good, and It's a Man's World. He didn't just build a career, he built a cultural force. 17 #1 R&B hits, a sound that helped shape funk, soul, and modern music itself. But that kind of greatness came at a cost. For more than 50 years, James Brown lived on the road, touring, performing, recording, rarely slowing down. And for his children, that meant growing up in a reality very different from the image the world saw. He was the father of at least 9 children, born across multiple relationships. But they didn't grow up as one family. They grew up in pieces, different homes, different mothers. What connected them was a name. Some tried to stay close to that legacy. Some built lives far away from it. And some would later find themselves drawn into something far more complicated than fame. Because the real fracture didn't begin while he was alive. It began the moment he was gone. On Christmas Day in 2006, James Brown passed away at the age of 73, following complications from pneumonia and heart failure. And almost immediately, his legacy became a legal question. At the center of it all was an estate estimated at around $100 million, a combination of music rights, intellectual property, and future royalties that would continue generating income for years to come. But what made the situation even more complex was how that estate was structured. According to his will, the majority of his wealth wasn't intended for his family. Instead, it was directed toward a larger purpose, funding scholarships for underprivileged students in South Carolina and Georgia, along with a charitable organization known as the I Feel Good Trust. His children were included, but they were not the primary focus. On paper, it looked intentional, even admirable. But in reality, it set off a chain reaction. Almost immediately, disputes began.
That I'm to get 17% of the state off the top, that I can live in the house for as long as I want to. He can live in the house for as long as he wants to.
His children pushed back, questioning whether their father had the mental capacity when the will was created. In 2008, lawsuits were filed. A compromise was reached, then later overturned. And what followed wasn't just a disagreement. It became a legal battle that stretched on for more than a decade. Year after year, the situation remained unresolved. By 2020, 14 years after his death, not a single scholarship had been awarded. Eventually, the South Carolina Supreme Court stepped in, rejecting earlier compromises and restoring the original terms of James Brown's will. But by then, the damage had already been done. Because what was once a family had turned into opposing sides of a dispute. But behind every legal document are real people with very different memories of the same father. Dr. Yamma Brown, the daughter who broke the silence. Didn't grow up chasing the spotlight. She grew up trying to understand it. As a child, Yamma witnessed moments that rarely made it into interviews or headlines. A household shaped by control, tension, and episodes of domestic abuse that left lasting emotional marks. For years, those experiences remained unspoken until she chose to tell them. In 2014, Yamma released her memoir, Cold Sweat, My Father James Brown and Me, not as an attack on her father's legacy, but as an attempt to reveal the man behind it. Not the icon, not the performer, but the human being her family lived with. Outside of that story, Yamma built a life far removed from fame. She became a pharmacist, choosing stability over spotlight. Yet over time, she stepped back into the public eye through documentaries like A and E's Say It Loud, offering a perspective that felt grounded, personal, and unfiltered. And her life carried its own tragedy. In 2009, her husband was murdered, a loss that added another layer of pain to an already complex journey. But even through grief, she never rewrote her story to make it more comfortable. Because for Yamma, legacy wasn't about protecting an image. But what happens when another child chooses to protect that same legacy, instead of questioning it? For Deanna Brown, the answer has always been clear. Deanna Brown, the daughter who protects Daddy. Deanna Brown, another daughter of James Brown, didn't step away from her father's story. She stepped directly into it. As the chair of the James Brown Family Foundation, Deanna has spent years working to preserve what she believes is the true image of her father, not just as a global icon, but as Daddy. That distinction matters, because while the world celebrates the godfather of soul, Deanna focuses on the man behind the stage. In 2024, she even co-produced a musical about his life, helping bring his story to a new generation, this time through her own lens. But her role hasn't been easy. In 2020, Deanna was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, a serious health battle that forced her to slow down, but not step away. Years after his passing, she openly expressed frustration that the vision he left behind, particularly the scholarships, had still not been fully realized. For Deanna, this isn't just about money. It's about intention, about honoring what her father meant to do, even when the system around it became complicated. But not every child stayed close to the spotlight. Some stepped away from it entirely. Daryl Brown, the son who grew up inside his father's musical world. Not just as a son, but as a musician. He didn't watch the legacy from the outside. He lived inside it, playing guitar, working alongside his father, and becoming part of the very sound that made James Brown a global icon. For Daryl, the connection wasn't distant. It was direct. But that closeness also meant something else. He saw a side of his father few others did. And when the narratives around James Brown became more complicated, Daryl chose not to stay silent. In 2014, he released his memoir, My Father the Godfather, offering his own perspective, one that often defended his father against criticism and controversy. Not to deny the past, but to present it differently. After that, something changed. Daryl slowly stepped away from the public eye. Fewer appearances, less media presence, almost no involvement in the noise surrounding the estate battle. It wasn't a dramatic exit. It was quiet, intentional. But while some chose distance, one son couldn't escape the center of the storm. James Brown II. The heir must prove DNA. James Brown II, the youngest son of James Brown, was born in 2001, at a time when his father's legacy was already firmly established. But unlike his siblings, his place in that legacy was never fully accepted from the beginning. Questions were raised, doubts were public. Because years earlier, James Brown had undergone a vasectomy. leading many to question whether this child could truly be his. The answer didn't come from opinion. It came from science. DNA tests would later confirm that James Brown II was, in fact, his son.
That was all my husband needed. That was all I needed. We were happy. 150 million interviews later, I'm his wife in every one of them. I'm his wife to this day.
Yet in 2020, a South Carolina court ruled that her marriage was invalid due to unresolved issues from a previous relationship. And with that decision, everything became more complicated. Because if the marriage wasn't legally recognized, what did that mean for the child at the center of it? For years, James Brown II found himself caught between legal arguments, inheritance disputes, and questions about legitimacy, a situation that lasted well over a decade. Eventually, after years of litigation and settlement processes, he was recognized as a legal heir with a share of the estate. But by then, the experience had already shaped his identity. Today, James Brown II is pursuing music, following in the footsteps of his father, but in a very different world. Social media, independent releases, and a quieter kind of visibility define his path. But not every story in this family was loud. Some were almost invisible. Terry Brown and Larry Brown, two sons of James Brown from his first marriage to Velma Warren, chose a life far from the spotlight. No interviews, no public presence, no attempt to shape the narrative. Terry remained completely private, despite being one of the children named in James Brown's 2000 will. Larry, while just as quiet, still appeared behind the scenes, connected to legal challenges surrounding the estate and its management. Then there's Lisa Brown, a name with almost no public story, no clear career, no visible life in the media, only recognition as one of his children. Then there's the LaRonda Petite, a daughter confirmed by DNA after James Brown's death, not included in his will and not officially acknowledged during his lifetime. And then, there are the stories that ended before they ever had a chance to unfold. Teddy Brown, the eldest son of James Brown, was part of his father's earliest chapter, long before the global fame reached its peak. But his story was cut short. In 1973, at just 19 years old, Teddy died in a tragic car accident. No legacy built, no path fully explored, just a life that ended too soon. The first crack in the family, long before the spotlight became overwhelming. Because in the story of James Brown, there isn't just one version of the truth. There are many. For some of his children, he was a provider. For others, a distant figure. And for some, a man they were still trying to understand long after he was gone. The same name, but very different memories attached to it. What looked powerful on stage, control, precision, perfection, didn't always exist at home. Instead, the legacy became something fragmented. But what do you think? Did his legacy unite his children, or slowly tear them apart over time? Share your thoughts below. And if you want more stories like this, stay with us. We'll see you in the next one.